Welcome to Cove Audiobooks, the Doctrine series. You're listening to LWD 1, The Fundamentals of Land Power, 2017 edition. This is Chapter 1, War and Warfare. War remains a struggle of political and human will, framed by enduring themes of friction, danger and uncertainty. For over 3,000 years, organised society has used land power as a decisive means to seek political dominance because of its unique capacity to achieve sustained and persistent control and influence over the land and the population that lives on it. However, the conduct of warfare, continues to change based on desired political objectives, human interaction, cultural norms, environment and technology. These changes require intelligent study as they alter the character of warfare in ways that can affect success. Such study is assisted by understanding the conduct, levels, and principles of war, giving a framework to identify what has changed and what is enduring. One characteristic that is critical to modern understanding is the expansion of war theory to include the full spectrum of conflict. The distinction between conflict and war has become one of degrees and perception rather than substance. All war is conflict, yet not all conflict is termed war, with the spectrum extending from no conflict situations like humanitarian relief up to and including total war between states. This reaffirms that conflict at any level is a competition of political and human will that can use violent and non-violent means to influence a diverse group of actors to achieve the political objective. Therefore, studying the enduring nature of war, the characteristics of warfare, and its conduct informs a better understanding of the entire spectrum of conflict, no matter how land power is employed. The enduring nature of war. In the early 19th century, a great strategic thinker and student of warfare, Karl von Clausewitz, revealed an ambition to write a book that would not be forgotten after 2 or 3 years, and that possibly might be picked upon more than once by those who are interested in the subject. Clausewitz's book has enduring relevance for 2 reasons. First, his theory of war is not tied to any particular time, type of belligerent or technology, and therefore remains as relevant today as it has been throughout the course of human history. Second, Clausewitz's theory remains fundamentally superior to anything else written before or since. Clausewitz's On War remains the most unambiguous statement on the nature of war. There remains an enduring obligation on students of warfare to evaluate the nature of war in an attempt to identify its character relative to a particular time and place. What is essential to any study is the absolute truth that wars resemble one another more than they resemble any other human activity. All are fought, as Clausewitz insisted, with that special element of danger, fear and confusion peculiar to the conflict. Opponents seek to impose their will on one another through violence. Land warfare is intimately affected by the political environment in which it takes place. Clausewitz observed that war should never be thought of as something autonomous, but always as an instrument of policy. Politics at all levels, domestic, regional and global, thus profoundly influence the conduct of land warfare. War and conflict are innate elements of the human condition and comprise a constant competition using both violent and non-violent means between multiple, diverse actors struggling for influence and control of societies. Inescapably, war means people fighting people, and fighting means killing. Land warfare is a permanent feature of human existence. Victory or defeat on land has generally been synonymous with victory or defeat for the state. Great land powers such as Rome, France, Germany and Russia have suffered their most decisive defeats on the land. Land combat has also played a critical role in wars of maritime powers such as Athens, Venice, Britain, Japan and the United States. Land warfare is characterised by 7 distinctive features. Firstly, higher social organisation. State-based warfare, particularly since 1648, has led to the creation of professional military land forces that often form the bulwark of strategic capability. Secondly, the importance of geography. Occupation of decisive terrain is a key element in achieving victory in war. Unlike the sea, air, cyber and space domains, where control and influence are possible, but permanent occupation is not, physical geography is able to be occupied by soldiers to produce a decisive outcome. Thirdly, variety in topography. The land domain and its effect on warfare is further defined by its heterogeneous nature. Land includes jungle, desert, mountains, Arctic expanses, urban and rural terrain. By contrast, air, sea, space and cyber domains are relatively homogeneous in nature, and thus their impact on people is easier to predict. Fourthly, domination by European military concepts. Land warfare is historically based on the continental school of thought, much of which is derived from Europe following the Age of Enlightenment. Leading thinkers who define this include Karl von Clausewitz, Frederick the Great, and Jomini. Within the spectrum of conflict, actions can take many forms, ranging from enforcing sanctions through to violent clashes between opposing forces. Despite differences in size, wealth and power, parties to conflict and adversaries in war share a common aim: to threaten or use force to impose their will on another in order to achieve political purpose. Adversaries may be various combinations of armed, network insurgents or irregular troops, through to conventional forces capable of exploiting a variety of ways to fight and win. Clausewitz introduced the notion of remarkable trinity to describe the interaction of chance, passion, and the pursuit of rational political objectives. This trinity describes political processes that exist everywhere, at every level, and rest in human perception. Conflict as a political process tends to escape rational control because it generates unpredictable and chaotic behaviour. Warfare and its challenges magnify the interaction between chance, emotion, and the pursuit of rational objectives. Friction, danger, uncertainty, and chance will always be present in conflict. Conflict is also influenced by human interaction and physical terrain. Clausewitz describes friction as the force that makes the apparently easy so difficult. The factors that generate friction are enemy action, adverse weather, complex terrain, poor coordination, insufficient or accurate information, and human error. These factors combine to make even the simplest of actions difficult to accomplish. Initiative, sound leadership, operational experience, and thorough and realistic training mitigate but never eliminate friction. The danger associated with violence engenders fear in combatants and dramatically degrades the efficiency and effectiveness of soldiers and units. Realistic training and strong leadership reduce the negative effects of fear by generating high morale, confidence, and resilience. Uncertainty pervades the battlefield in all forms. Incomplete, inaccurate, and often contradictory information about the enemy, the environment, and the friendly situation creates uncertainty, or the fog of war. In the face of this uncertainty, individuals and organisations at all levels must be educated and postured to act intuitively and decisively, informed by adaptive planning processes and tactical procedures in the absence of complete information. In all situations of conflict, chance creates random, unpredictable events that present a commander with opportunities and threats. Successful exploitation of unanticipated opportunities can exacerbate the effect of chaos on the enemy. Dealing with fleeting opportunities requires devolved authority and responsibility, highly developed analytical skills, and creative thinking by all soldiers and a determination to act. Free and creative will is an important characteristic of human interaction. The will to win and the search for advantage leads protagonists to adopt novel methods and technologies. To cope with the unexpected, there is an increasing requirement to retain initiative and freedom of action. These will be based on versatility, the ability to perform a range of tasks, adaptability, the ability to embrace new and unforeseen tasks, and agility, the ability to transition rapidly between tasks. Danger is inherent in conflict and engenders fear in all protagonists. Overcoming fear requires discipline and moral and physical courage. Fear is one reason humans make mistakes. Human fallibility can lead to unintended and unpredicted consequences and is the principal cause of friction, uncertainty, and chance. All conflict is based on the pursuit of political aims which may use degrees of armed force to attain objectives. Violence can destroy a regime or so threaten a population's way of life that it chooses to cease resistance. Violence, however, cannot change people's minds nor gain their support for a political proposition. It can only impose costs on them. Success in conflict, therefore, requires that the victor and the people's political aims are aligned. In any conflict, there are three distinct parties involved: enemy forces, friendly forces, and non-combatants. Each of these could comprise numerous groups such as militias, non-state actors, criminals, non-government organisations, and security contractors. Enemy forces can be defined as a person, group, or a nation that nurtures hatred for, fosters harmful designs, or engages in antagonistic activities against another adversary or opponent. Regardless of their nationality or motivation, threat forces are creative and determined and employ different combinations of force, method, and technology to achieve their goals. Such enemies, by their nature, try to avoid friendly strengths. They exploit weaknesses and upset plans. This means that conflict rarely proceeds as initially envisaged, reinforcing the need for flexibility and adaptability. Military forces often operate as part of a coalition with other friendly forces. Almost invariably, they are also required to operate alongside other government and civilian agencies and organisations. All members of a coalition are faced with the problem of reconciling their respective strategic objectives with the practical issues of interoperability. These include doctrinal compatibility, identification of friendly forces, intelligence sharing, logistic interaction, communication, and coordination. Some non-combatants act only to ensure physical self-preservation or the protection of their interests. Others are willing participants to help either resolve the conflict or alleviate the suffering of others. Collectively, the parties to a conflict and their interactions constitute a complex human environment. Regardless of their differences, human interaction is marked by free and creative will, political aims, fear, and fallibility. The evolving character of war. Notwithstanding the enduring nature of war, the manner in which a war is prosecuted will continue to change. These changes influence armies' philosophical approach to the operating environment. The operating environment is not just the physical environment. It is the character of contemporary and likely future conflict. Changes to the character of warfare may occur slowly, over generations, or quite rapidly. Additionally, these changes clearly affect the tactical art of employing units and weapons, and to a lesser extent, the operational art of linking military objectives to achieve strategic ones. A central challenge of confronting contemporary warfare is that we do not always understand what is a war and what is not. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union and its rule in Eastern Europe, that order, and by extension its inherited definitions of war and peace, have been contested. This has resulted in wars becoming fuzzy at the edges. They have no clear end, and military forces increasingly have to reject the appropriateness of classical definitions of military victory. As has been the case in the past, technological developments are continuing to drive change in the character of war. An information-led revolution in military affairs is well underway. It has increased the flow of information into, within and outside military operations, adding a layer of complexity for commanders at all levels. Effective information management and improved communications are permitting military commanders to make and disseminate better decisions, providing the ability to reach back for information and support such as joint fires. This connectivity has also resulted in the rise of global electronic media with real-time access to events, or nearly so, and the ability to reach audiences globally means a political and cultural moral audit of behaviour That will be the enduring feature of strategic practice. The strategic ramifications of this revolution in military affairs include the dissemination of relatively high technology weaponry and support equipment to non-state and weak state belligerents. The development of cyber power that is becoming ever more necessary for the creation of wealth and the functioning of armed forces is already resulting in cyber warfare. Maturing space capabilities for navigation, precision timing and imagery, science, commerce and communications guarantees that space warfare is a potential future focus of military operations. The conduct of war. The path to conflict is dynamic and unpredictable. Most instances of diplomatic or economic competition will not develop into conflict. In other cases, diplomatic incidents are used as pretense for war. Furthermore, a conflict may not be fully resolved and relations between the parties, be they two states or a state government and a non-state political group, may continue to be hostile due to the unresolved tension. Conflict may be protracted, with no near-term prospect of resolution. These differences highlight the importance of maintaining credible land forces that can provide scalable options to support the national interest. It also demonstrates that even though no two conflicts are the same, they do have similarities that can be expressed in scale, intensity, and duration. These three characteristics provide a useful comparison for commanders and planners. Scale. Scale represents the degree of threat to national interests, the size and nature of national effort. This includes military forces committed and the characteristics of the area of operations. The scale of conflict may be managed through various levels of command. Intensity. Intensity refers to the overall tempo, degree of violence, and technological sophistication employed. The rate of consumption of resources is also a measure of intensity. The intensity will be high when clashes occur frequently or when encounters between combatants are particularly violent. Intensity may vary during the course of a particular conflict and at the individual level, depending on the particular situation and perspective of the participants at any one time. Intensity should never be the determining factor of conflicts. The concept is generally of most use at the strategic level of command. Consequently, there is no direct relationship between the intensity and the size and nature of forces involved. Duration. Duration is the length of time spent engaged in a particular conflict, including any periods of escalated or reduced scale and intensity. A long-duration war may be the War on Terror, with its deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq, which has been a persistent conflict lasting for many years. By contrast, a short-duration example is the 1967 Arab-Israeli Six-Day War. Short duration, but at high intensity and scale. This is also an example of a war within a conflict, or the protracted conflict consisting of the Six-Day War, War of Attrition, and the Yom Kippur War. This conflict demonstrates how scale and intensity can change during a conflict duration, as the conflict has transitioned through a succession of state-on-state wars to an insurgency involving state and non-state actors, and back to state-on-state war. Levels of war. The military contribution to national security is managed through three levels of command: strategic, operational, and tactical. These levels reflect the distribution of responsibilities for planning and directing the resources allocated to specific military objectives. Interlinking these levels are strategy, operational art, and tactics. But in examining these levels, caution must be applied. Due to the dynamic and interactive nature of war, its practice, unlike command, cannot be divided into discrete levels. The levels of command are closely related, such that tactical actions contribute individually and/or collectively to strategic outcomes. While blurring of the levels of command is almost inevitable, the effective practice of mission command remains paramount to ensure tactical opportunities may be readily exploited. Regardless, the practicalities of communications, logistics, and mass are likely to demand the employment of an operational level headquarters capable of coordinating joint, interagency, and coalition effort. The strategic level of Command is responsible for coordinating the application of national power to achieve an end state favourable to the national interest. The strategic level focuses on the development and implementation of strategy as the identification of objectives, which are ends, concepts, which are ways, and resources, which are means, necessary to achieve them. At this level, all the elements of national power are employed in a manner that maximises their overall effectiveness. National policy and strategy integrates all the elements of national power to employ a whole-of-government approach to national security. The government considers how it will employ national power to secure the nation and/or protect its interests. It determines the national strategic objectives, which tools of nation power to employ, and what resources, military or otherwise, are required. This includes the mobilisation, posture and preparation of whole-of-government tools and the potential impact of their employment. The political dimension or impact, both domestically and internationally, is a key factor of any government's consideration of the use of military power. The military strategic level. The military strategic level of command links the military instrument of national power to a whole-of-government approach to national security. Military strategic commanders provide advice to the government and translate the government's directions into military strategy. At the military strategic level, both deliberate and immediate military planning are conducted to determine force design, posture, and preparedness requirements to meet the assigned and potential government tasks. Strategic commanders command and control the broad military approach across multiple services and levels to achieve these tasks. Military strategy seeks to achieve military strategic objectives assigned by national policy guidance or derived from the national security strategy. Military strategic concepts are developed to achieve these objectives, and these form the basis of campaign plans. Importantly, the necessary military forces, the capabilities and the resources required must be identified, and they must be matched to those concepts. Military strategy is prosecuted through design, sequence and execution of joint campaigns within a whole-of-government and frequently coalition context. Operational level. The operational level of command encompasses planning and conducting operations incorporating joint forces. A campaign is a series of simultaneous or sequential operations designed to achieve one or more strategic objectives. Military actions at the operational level are joint, often coalition, and invariably interagency in nature. The operational level achieves military strategic objectives by orchestrating, sequencing and resourcing tactical actions and efforts. Successful campaigning is founded on the creative application of the operational art. Operational art is the skill of employing military forces to attain strategic objectives in a theatre of operations through the design, organisation and conduct of campaign and major operations. Primarily cognitive rather than organisational, it features the creation and sequencing of a series of tactical actions to achieve abstract strategic ends. The operational art links strategy and tactics and aims to set the conditions most likely to achieve the strategic objectives. In a campaign, a line of operation is a philosophical sequence of operations, each of which assists in the achievement of a particular strategic objective. In a generic sense, a line of operation describes where military effort is applied to achieve the end state. This allows land forces to sequence and resource main and secondary efforts. Multiple lines of operation may be utilised to create an operational level framework from which to consider the diverse array of tactical actions required to achieve assigned objectives. At the tactical level, commanders prepare for, plan and conduct tactical actions to achieve tasks on lines of operation within a campaign. Successful tactical action requires the application of joint and combined arms fighting power to defeat the enemy at a particular time and place. The achievement of tactical tasks is therefore critical in accomplishing operational level objectives and in turn setting the conditions for strategic objectives to be met. The tactical level is focused on tactics, the ordered arrangement and manoeuvre of units in relation to one another and the enemy in order to utilise their full potential. Compression of the levels of command. Conflict, unlike command, cannot be divided into discrete levels. The levels of command are closely related such that tactical actions contribute individually and/or collectively to strategic outcomes. While blurring the levels of command is almost inevitable, the effective practice of mission command remains paramount to ensure tactical opportunities may be readily exploited. Regardless, the practicalities of communications, logistics and mass are likely to demand the employment of an operational level headquarters capable of coordinating joint, interagency and coalition effort. Principles of war. Certain ideas about strategic planning and the conduct of operations can be deduced from the experience of the past. The principles are not laws such as laws of natural science, where the observance of certain conditions produces a predictable result. Nor are they like rules of a game, the breach of which entails a definite fixed penalty. The principles of war are simply a series of factors that successful commanders have found necessary to consider in the past. The weight given to a particular principle depends on the circumstances. It is unlikely all can be applied equally, and commanders will need to use their professional military judgment in their application. Selection and maintenance of the aim. Military action is never an end in itself. It is always a means to an end. The end must always remain clearly in view. This cardinal principle applies equally to the strategic, operational, and tactical levels of conflict. It relates to taking advantage of local opportunities only when they support commander's intent. The aim must be simple, direct, unambiguous, and within the means of the force available. It must be the one calculated to further the favourable conclusion of the operation, campaign, or the war. Once the aim has been decided, all effort must continually be directed towards the attainment of it, so long as this is possible, and every plan or action must be tested by its bearing on the aim. Concentration of force. Success in conflict depends on achieving a concentration of force at critical locations and times. Concentration of force is the ability to apply decisive military force at the right place and the right time, and in such a way as to achieve a decisive result. In non-contiguous battle spaces, this requires small, disaggregated teams with the ability to converge rapidly, access joint fires, achieve local superiority and decisive advantage, and then redeploy or regroup when the task is complete. Importantly, concentration of non-kinetic capabilities can achieve effects in the moral and intellectual domains just as the concentration of force achieves effects in the physical domain. Cooperation. Cooperation within joint combined arms interagency teams, allies and coalition partners is vital for success. Only in this way can the resources and energies of each be harnessed so as to achieve success. Synchronization and orchestration are implicit in cooperation. The principle of cooperation is fundamental to combined arms teams. Economy of effort. Economy of effort is the prudent allocation and application of resources to achieve the desired results and needs to be balanced with the other principles of war, notably security and sustainment. For example, the more resources allocated to ensuring security, the fewer are available for offensive action. Economy of effort is required to achieve, maintain, or switch the main effort elsewhere. Supporting efforts are designed to contribute to the achievement of the main effort and subsequent mission success. Security. Security is concerned with measures taken by a command to protect itself from espionage, sabotage, subversion, observation, or surprise. It is of basic concern during any operation or campaign. Security is required to operate effectively with minimal interference from the enemy. Commanders at all levels are responsible for the security of their force. Security can often be obtained by offensive operations, which, by threatening the enemy's security, restrict his freedom of action. Security applies especially to information and requires that the enemy be deprived of the knowledge of one's own actions, dispositions, and intentions. Offensive action. Military forces take offensive action to gain and retain the initiative. In most circumstances, such action is essential to the achievement of victory. Where offensive action is required, it must be swift, decisive, and should be directed towards the achievement of the end state. Offensive action is not limited to the application of force, but encompasses the proactive use of non-kinetic capabilities, such as information dominance and influence. Surprise. Surprise can produce results out of all proportion to the effort expended, and is closely related to security. The ability of land force to disperse and rapidly concentrate is critical to achieving surprise. Not all activities can remain concealed, so deception should be employed to conceal the intent of any action. Flexibility. Flexibility is the capacity to adapt plans to take account of unforeseen circumstances to ensure success in the face of friction, unexpected resistance, or setbacks, or to capitalise on unexpected opportunities. It relates to the ability to maintain effectiveness across a range of tasks, situations, and conditions. The ability to dynamically manage the balance and weight of effort across different lines of operation in space and time, and the ability to rapidly identify, then appropriately respond to new threats and opportunities. Sustainment. Sustainment refers to the support arrangements necessary to implement strategies and operational plans. These arrangements include those logistics and personnel efforts necessary for the efficient support of a force committed to the operations. This refers to the requirement to logistically support a large number of small, dispersed combat teams without revealing the location of those teams to the enemy. In a contemporary context, sustainment may also be extended to other actions or stakeholders, such as non-combatants. Maintenance of morale. Morale is an essential element of combat power. High morale engenders courage, energy, cohesion, endurance, steadfastness, determination, and a bold offensive spirit. In any given situation, military success may depend as much on morale as on material advantages. Good leadership through training and success on operations will all contribute to high morale. Actions taken directly or indirectly to destroy the enemy's morale are an important means of reducing the enemy's combat effectiveness. Understanding war and warfare. Understanding what's changed about the character of war and what endures in the nature of war requires significant analysis. Such analysis is essential because the deductions drawn and the trusted principles relied upon will fundamentally shape an army's preparation for the conduct of war. This preparation is underpinned by the knowledge that the army is an entity that threatens and, when necessary, applies violence to achieve national objectives. The army's understanding of war and warfare also influences its sense of self and purpose that is required to formulate its concept of land power, shape its culture, and determine how it will contribute to strategic tasks. These three matters are all the subject of the next chapter. Thank you for listening to Chapter 1 of 4 in our LWD1 audiobook series. Head to www.cove.org.au to listen to the next podcast in the collection.